everyone. Welcome to the November 19th, sorry, 2018, 29th, gosh. An advisory council meeting for the Bureau of Electronic and Appliance Repair, Home Furnishings, and Thermal Insulation. Next time we meet, that name will be much shorter, thank goodness. So. We'll start with facility safety items. For those that are here in attendance, through these double doors to your left are restrooms down the hall, straight down the hall and then to the right. And that's an emergency exit route, as well as right behind me here. And then north, take a right, and you would exit that way. Any other? For those on the phone, there tends to be I think there's a lag in the video and the call-in conference line. So please. So try to watch the video. I think the video is where you'll get the video's behind. Okay, so if you're watching the video, call into the conference line, and that would allow you to have it be real time. Other than that, for those here that will be presenting and or commenting, just come up to one of the microphones here, right in front, and make sure you speak into the microphone. Okay, thank you. All right, so roll call. We'll start over here to my right.
Hi, Don Lucas, public member.
Thank you, Don.
This is Rita Wong, Deputy Bureau Chief at BEARHFTI.
Pascal Beniamini, Industry.
Chris Higdon, California Moving and Storage Association.
Steve Whitecamp, California Moving and Storage Association.
And then I know we have a few members on the phone. Can you?
This is Michael Lipset.
Hello, Michael.
Antoinette Stein, public member, Environmental Health Trust.
Hello, Antoinette. Judy, are you on yet? She'll be joining us. She emailed me to let me know. So, okay. Future meeting dates. Do you have those? I believe it was March 14th or the 21st. For those council members in attendance, are either one of those days better for you?
My preference would be the 14th.
14th?
Either one is fine.
Okay.
Either is fine for me.
Okay.
Yeah, the 14th is fine for me.
Okay. The 14th it is. All right, on to item D, the August council meeting recap. I don't necessarily have a recap. If anyone has items that they'd like to discuss from the last meeting, then now would be the time. Nope. Okay, thank you. So now we'll get into the statistical overview. We'll start with Karen Skelton, our licensing manager at the Bureau. Welcome, Karen.
Good morning, everyone. Our licensing statistics have remained pretty constant for the BEARHFTI side. Service contract sellers.
Sorry, can Karen get closer to the microphone? It's not possible to hear it.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Just a little bit.
Okay, I'll try. It's about as loud as I can get, and the mic is live, so I will try to speak slowly and clearly. On our service contract registrations, we have gone up, and we continue to go up. With adding all consumer products next year, we will continue to increase in the number of service contract registrations that we have.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's fading. Is it possible to come closer to a mic?
Not really. I'm about as close as I can get without kissing the mic.
Well, actually, you kind of need to do that. You were with the right volume just now for the first time.
Okay, this much better now?
Much better.
Okay, I feel like I have feedback, so. It said again, with the service contracts, we will be taking on all consumer products next year, and so we are going to continually increase. That is going to be probably our biggest licensing, continually growing population that we have. On the home furnishing side, we have noticed a dip over the last few years in furniture and bedding retailers, but we also have noticed a rise in bedding retailers. Some of them have been because the furniture and bedding that had the combo switched over and only did bedding, but also too we've made a concerted effort to contact a lot of online companies who work with just selling the bedding products, and so we're trying to reach out more and more to them because competition has to be fair and level for everyone. Also, too, we have for the first time some household mover permit statistics. At the end of September, we had 936 active household mover permits. We had issued 25 permits since July 1st. However, that is, going to keep going up because we now have all the kind of obstacles that we were dealing with exams and fingerprints. Those roadblocks have been cleared, and so now we're doing just with a few weeks turnaround time. If everybody has their requirements taken care of, we're able to issue permits. We also administered 36 exams since July 1st. We've had a 64% success rate or pass rate on those. I'm going to defer, though, to Jacqueline. She's going to talk later, too, about some of the things that we've done to make the exams more accessible, more accommodating, and we expect to see more exams administered and also a better pass rate on these exams. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, one other thing, too, just to let you guys know, we did our third quarter filings for the first ones. We were almost done for the household movers. We've pulled in about $543,000 so far on that. We, won't have until next meeting like a full count for the third quarter filings on that, but we feel like we've been pretty successful in handling those, handling the questions, the confusion from the two agencies. It seems like it's gone fairly smoothly in doing that. So does anybody have any questions about the licensing?
Karen, I do. On the permit side, the total number of permits, is there a way to break out the sub-hauler permit versus the general carrier permit?
Not at this point, but that is certainly something we want to be able to do, is be able to do local, statewide sub-hauler and piano and be able to give everybody what those specific statistics are for those particular types of permits.
Okay, and I don't want to take away from any of Jacqueline's thunder, but these exams, are any of these listed? Were they at testing centers?
I think that this, because it went through September we didn't have the contract base. These were all administered by us as a bureau through the end of September.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and Jacqueline will be talking more about what we're doing in-house versus what we're doing out-house. Okay, anything else? Chris?
Yeah, I have a question to ask when I sign. Is there test preparation materials that the Bureau puts out, or is that done by third parties?
Okay, we have a test handbook that we have worked to develop with our folks here that do the testing. However, the Bureau has inherited and had some material. We have also now made a handbook for the participants and the applicants who need to take the test that are given to be able to help them. Okay, Chris, you had a question?
I just got it answered.
Okay, if there's no further questions, that's it for me.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, next up, Shalom. Yeah, and Jonathan will do consumer complaints statistics as well as enforcement and investigations stats.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, everybody on the phone. My name is Shalom. Yes, you can hear me. Oh, good. My name is Shalom Rojas Cardenas. I work in the enforcement or the compliance unit at the Bureau. And I'm going to be providing the statistics on page 8 for the compliance unit. The statistics for the telephone disconnects ordered in the compliance unit for 2017-18 would be Bear 48, BEARHFTI 17 for a total of 65. And the 2018-19 is not completed yet, so you can see the numbers on page 8 of the agenda. So I won't go through those, but the consumer complaint numbers for 2017-18, the complaints opened would be Bear 1,019, BEARHFTI 288, for a total of 1,307. The Bear complaints closed was 1,114. BEARHFTI is 281 for a total of 1,295. And the internal cases, which are investigations that have been opened in 2017-18, is 624 for Bear. BEARHFTI is 355 for a total of 979 open cases. Closed cases for Bear would be 705. BEARHFTI would be 388 for a total of 1,093. And so that's the end of my part of the statistics for the compliance unit, and I'll let Jonathan follow.
My name is Jonathan Sabine. I'm the supervising special investigator over the investigations unit. Can everybody hear me?
Just barely. Would it be possible to get closer to the microphone?
I'm pretty close, but I'll speak a little louder.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Sure. So I will cover the complaint numbers for household movers. So as of
I'm sorry, Jonathan, I forgot to mention citations issued, but I can do it after you're done.
Sure, yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah, that would work. So total household mover complaints, we have 128, and I believe these are as current as October, end of October. Loss and/or damages, we have 36. Hold hostage complaints that have come through the EUC unit, that's also 36. Unlicensed tips, 19.
Could you speak up? Right, it just faded.
Sure. Interstate, 11. Miscellaneous, 11. Overcharges, 8. Refunds, 4. Delivery, 2. And restoration, 1. Are there any other questions on household mover complaints?
Yeah, I have a question on the loss or damage portion of the complaints. And so the resolution, as far as the Bureau is concerned, of those complaints is the communication process between the carrier and the shipper. Is that correct? That you guys aren't adjudicating the value of the loss or the damage. The code specifically speaks to whether or not the consumer receives their notification of their rights and a opportunity for them to submit a claim and for that claim to be processed in a reasonable fashion.
That's correct. That's correct, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many of these complaints are filed against unlicensed movers?
Are unlicensed movers? We don't have the exact number, but hold hostage, a majority of those are
Unlicensed.
unlicensed, and then unlicensed tips. The rest of these are licensed, I believe, for jurisdictional issues.
I'm sure there's some. I just was
Yeah.
curious as to.
And while we're talking about that, I just can't compliment you guys enough for getting engaged in the hold hostage situation. It's something that's never been addressed before, and it's something that there was a great need to help consumers, and thank you guys for stepping up and getting engaged in that part.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will go ahead and go over the citation issue statistics for 2017-18. For Bear, the number is 550. For BEARHFTI, the number is 305, for a total of 855. So. Are there any questions?
Yeah, this is Michael Litzford. Just with respect to the citations that are issued, what's the consequence of that for like the people under each one of these jurisdictions?
The consequence could be anywhere from issuing a citation for a certain amount to I would think that the most stern would be revocation of the license.
And do you have any data on that kind of outcome?
I do not, but I can get it for you if you'd like.
You don't have to do that. I was just curious if you collect that kind of information routinely or not. And also just like what is these citations, are these like the equivalent of fix-it tickets, or do they involve some sort of monetary penalty?
They do have a monetary penalty, yes, sorry.
And what, do you have like the range and the average of what these amount to?
Bear starts out, we issue citations for 250. BEARHFTI can go anywhere from 500 to, just depending on, could be a lab failure case, and that could go into the thousands.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so, but you don't, again, this is not something that you routinely, you keep track of then, is that correct?
You know, I believe they do keep track of the numbers. I just don't have them here available with me.
Yeah, Michael?
Yes.
Hi, it's Nicholas. So any citation that we issue, we have a record of that citation. We know how much, was, I guess, what the citation amount was, or whether there was a modification and all of those things. I mean, we could provide that to you, but it's not something that we would typically report on in this setting.
Okay, that's fine. And just one other question. So with these citations that are issued, the fines that the licensees end up paying, I'm assuming these go into your budget and help support the enforcement division, is that, or the enforcement part of the Bureau, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is Jonathan again, and so I'm going to cover the household movers enforcement and investigation statistics. So currently in investigation, the investigations unit is investigating 153 home mover cases. The majority of those are unlicensed. I've also broken down hold hostage that the field is handling, and so there are actually more, I believe, more hold hostage situations. There are 38 broken down. 26 cases have been resolved. 6 are pending currently, and 6 have been forwarded to other agencies, such as the Fmcsa or other federal agencies. Cease and desist letters, notification of unlicensed activity, we have issued 7, and currently there is 1 case with a district attorney's office. Are there any questions?
Can you talk just a little bit about the subpoenas?
Sure. So part of the authority that is given to the director of the DCA and can be delegated to bureau chiefs is the power for investigative subpoenas. And so this comes in handy for when a third party is in possession of information. So with unlicensed movers, typically we've had unlicensed movers that have tried to conceal their address, so we would have difficulty issuing a cease and desist or a citation. And so what we have done is that we have issued, as of now, 2 investigative subpoenas to third-party agencies. So what we've seen is a unlicensed mover will have a website, and they'll conceal their registrant address, and they'll use what's called a domain proxy. But the domain proxy will comply with legal processes, including subpoenas, and so that is one avenue that we are currently using to gain that information.
I have a question on the investigative subpoenas. Does that pour over into the other BEARHFTI and Bear side?
Yes, yes, it does.
And are there any investigative subpoenas pending at the moment?
For the other programs? Or,
Correct.
No, not as of now.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, Carrie, our lab manager, will give our laboratory testing statistics.
See how loud I can talk. Good morning. This is Carrie Catalifo. I'm the lab manager, and I'm going to go over page 11.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'd like to just request that everybody up there get really close to the microphone. It's
Carrie.
to be so annoying about it, but it's really difficult to hear when you're more than like an inch or 2 away from the microphone.
I'm going to change seats and see if that helps. Can you hear me better?
Much, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. So on page 11 of the material packet is the lab statistics. So I'm going to go over some of those numbers. You'll notice in the first table for TB 117-2013, it does mention here a 12% fail rate for that flammability test. However, I do want to point out that that was a very small selection based on the data selected. I did the fiscal year 18-19, so there were only a total of 50 samples here. The 12% is based on the 6 samples that did fail. I do encourage our laboratory unit to definitely complete the fail samples first before the pass samples. So that is definitely part of that 12% that you're seeing. If you look at these statistics from our probably our last advisory council, from that entire fiscal year, there was a 5% fail rate, which is really what we've been seeing, around a 5-6% fail rate. So by the next time we have another advisory committee meeting, those numbers should go down. On the 16 CFR 1633, which is the open flame test for mattresses and mattress sets, federal test, we have a 15% fail rate. That is generally about what we're seeing on that particular test. Thermal insulation, we do have a lot of thermal insulation testing in-house. Those have not been completed at this time. Many of those boards have a 6-month aging, so by the next advisory council meeting, you will see some numbers there as well. Bedding products can be anything from sleeping bags, comforters, bed pillows, also mattress pads. Now, in mattress pads, they do have to meet a federal standard. So in this case, we didn't have any mattress pads. But when I say the 32% fail rate, that's actually based on, might be a finish size that failed, or the inside filling components might be not accurate. So those numbers are also reflected down in labeling, because it's really a labeling failure for bedding in that category. Next would be labeling, and we're at about an 81% fail rate. That's totally normal. You know, it's usually around 85% fail rate. Now, naturally, not all of those failures are going to our compliance unit. The same thing would apply for our bedding products. It does have to be major failures before we're sending them forward to our compliance unit, where they issue citations and go forward with actions. But so the 81% on labeling could reflect just that the terminology is incorrect, the label format is incorrect, those kind of issues. On the FR chemical labeling and analysis, here we're talking about the labeling as far as for upholstered furniture. Did folks check mark that there were no chemicals or that there were chemicals on our particular flammability label? As you can see, actually, as far as no boxes checked, since SB 1019 came around, or the 19094 law, we were encouraging folks that definitely, if you're not going to check any boxes, that is a good way of going to our enforcement unit. We will transfer those samples directly to our enforcement unit for action. So folks have really gotten word on that, and we didn't have any samples that had no boxes checked, so that's a great thing. In addition, you'll see we have 95% that are check marking that they contain no chemicals, and I believe that's the direction we were all hoping for. That's a great number. It's been going up ever since the SB 1019 and folks being aware of FR chemicals, those sort of things. So I did want to mention that. We try and send out in regards to our DTSC analysis and our FR document request, we want to send out a certain percentage of our samples that we do get in that checkmark contain no chemicals. So we've been doing a pretty good job of that. You'll see it's about 35% that we're sending out for FR docs and DTSC analysis. Those two are coinciding. In regards to our analysis from DTSC, you'll see that we have about an 11% failure rate. What we're doing right now with DTSC, and we do meet with them every year to decide how many samples that we are going to be sending out, and along with what our budget will be for the year. So those things are decided in around March or April. Also, DTSC, they're in charge of the FR chemical, flame retardant chemical list. They do post a list of chemicals that we're looking for each year, along with the methodologies for those chemicals. And I encourage folks to always go to the DTSC website and check that out, because that's a moving target. It can change every year. So you might think, oh, I have the list of chemicals and I'm all good. But they may have added another new chemical. So please be aware to go out and do check that website. For our doc review, we've had, well, it's 11% failure rate as well, but it may not be the same samples that failed for chemical analysis. We've had a pretty good success rate, but it is quite lengthy. We'll send out the information, as much information as we can, to the manufacturer so that they can provide documentation to prove that each of those components that are placed in their product do not contain FR chemicals. Now, if we were sending out a doc request and they did provide all the information to show to the best of the supplier's knowledge, or maybe through test results that there were no FR chemicals. Those same samples we are sending out to DTSC for analysis. So hopefully everything is matching up. If the documentation said no FR chemicals, hopefully we are not finding any when we have the DTSC analysis conducted. And any questions in regards to these statistics?
No, go ahead.
I have a couple. Regarding the federal mattress standard, I assume somebody in the federal government is doing testing? And do you know what numbers they have?
Right. The federal government, they do conduct testing. I'm not sure in regards to their statistics and how many failures they get or how many samples they test even per year.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if the federal government's doing the testing, why are you doing additional testing?
As well. Well, the testing that we do conduct, our failures, we are forwarding on to the CPSC. They may have other actions in addition to our actions. And it could be we have a failure on the test itself. It could be that CPSC will be asking for more records in regards to what's required for their in-house testing for their quality assurance program. Right. But yeah, California, we have always tested for 1633.
Are you noticing any trends in the failures with the new mattress in a box type sales? Because they seem to be increasing. Are they complying as well as the old style mattresses?
Right, they are. Many of those are like a memory foam, and so it's really condensed into a box container. Quite often they're using a knit fabric barrier on the outside of that product, which proves to be beneficial to them passing. So I wouldn't say that we've had a higher rate of failure in those box-type products, no. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have a question, thank you. Actually, one clarification. You mentioned on the bedding fail percentages. Is there an overlap between the bedding fail percentages and the labeling percentages?
There is, yeah.
Okay.
I did go ahead and put that in specific to bedding, but, right, there would be. Mhm.
Okay. And then you mentioned a couple of categories for the labeling fail terminology format. Are the percentages of the on the label an issue when you guys test?
It can be as well. We do have a 5% variance, but in many cases, I wouldn't say, and I haven't done the analysis to see how many would have failed on labeling only based on a percentage and that going over that 5% variance. However, and at this point, those type of deficiencies are not going to our compliance unit. The things that would be major on a label that would go to our compliance unit would be if they totally have no percentages at all, so they just neglected that whole issue. naturally a reg number, if that was incorrect or missing. However, the laboratory would generally never receive a product that had an incorrect or no registry number, because our investigators would be red tagging that product. The lab wouldn't need to see it. They already have a violation, and that can be seen by our inspectors. If a lot of times we do require the physical configuration, so if you're going to put polyurethane foam, was it a pad form, was it shredded? So if they're missing the word pad, that would be a discrepancy, not one that would be going to our compliance unit. So the lab would just be sending out a letter and mentioning all the whatever discrepancies are there, so that the manufacturer knows that in their next run of labels, they should be correcting that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Carrie, do you find on the labels that a lot of it's font issues or labeling percentages, just minor things?
Most are minor, so not very many labeling issues would go to our compliance unit. Now, we did have the other day a mattress, federal mattress testing that we did, and on the 1633, they neglected to put any compliance statement about meeting the 16 CFR 1633. So that would go to our compliance unit. There's not very many labeling issues unless they're totally missing something. And like I said, the lab may not even see that because our inspectors would have caught onto that and red tagged it. If you had a upholstered furniture out there that had a law label, but they had no flammability label and no SB 1019, that would just be on red tag, so it can't be sold. It would never hit the lab.
Is there, do you have an updated description of like pads and batting and everything else? I know you're working with the national label people to see if we can kind of condense everything and come up with, what we need for proper descriptions.
Yeah, I know we do have batting and pad, that is mentioned in our regulations, but we do have some missing descriptive terms that we're hoping to include in our label regulation. The International Association of Bedding and Furniture Law Officials, IABFLO, they do have a more extensive list of descriptions in that labeling manual. So we will look at that to consider if any of those terminologies or physical descriptions might be beneficial to add into our regulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah, this is Michael. It said, going back to what I think it was Don was asking about earlier regarding the federal testing of mattresses as well. You follow the exact same protocol that they do for testing mattresses for flammability?
Right. Yes. Yes, we do. Same method. Current version. I believe it's a 2016 version.
Okay, and then another just question just in terms of what is your selection procedure for mattresses to test?
Actually, whether it be mattresses or upholstered furniture or bedding, our inspectors go out and they are randomly selecting those products. Now, they do have some protocol. For instance, if we just picked up a mattress most recently, we would, and it was passing, we would not select another product from that manufacturer. We try our best not to be so-called picking on any one manufacturer, but to randomly select. It could be that we'll get a directive, and it could be from our compliance unit, or it could even come from the laboratory, or maybe a consumer tip that would drive a direct inspection from our inspectors, meaning, we would tell them where to go and what to secure. And it could be also that it was a company and they failed and they had an action against them. And it could be our compliance unit decided, hey, let's just go out and, make sure that they're complying at this time, their particular products. But whether it be mattress, furniture, or bedding, we would treat them the same.
Mm-hmm. And do you know how many samples the feds look at compared to what you do in a given year?
No, that question was kind of asked by Donald Lucas. I don't know what CPSC, what their numbers look like as far as mattress testing. That is something that we could probably acquire through CPSC. We have contact with them and with their compliance unit.
Would that be possible for the next meeting? Because I'd be just very curious to see, like, in terms of the numbers and also the types of mattresses. And I know you can't provide like specific brands in these public meetings, but just if there are some common characteristics among the ones that failed versus the ones that didn't.
Sure. Right, and it could be also, and I will check with CPSC, that they have something that would answer that question on their website. They do post a lot of information, so that could be a possibility.
Okay, all right. Well, I can check that as well.
Oh, all right, okay, thank you.
Hi, and this is Judy Levin. I just wanted to let you know I've been on for a while. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions for Carrie? Thank you, Carrie. Okay, we'll move now to agenda item 3, operations updates, and budget will be first.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone on the line. Just wanted to test my voice to see if you could hear me clearly. Is everyone good? Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. My name is Robert Delastreas. I'm the Bureau's DCA budget manager. I'm here with Paul McDermott, who's my budget analyst for the Bureau. First, before we give our budget update, just want to offer a sincere apology for last advisory committee for our lack of attendance. It was miscommunication on our part, but rest assured that's the last time it will happen, and moving forward, we won't be absent. And with that, I'll hand it off to Paul, and he'll give you guys a brief budget update today. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Also, what I'd like to do is, my name is Paul McDermott. I'm the current budget analyst for BEARHFTI. Also with us today is Ms. Karen Munoz, who's a highly respected budget analyst. And incidentally, now that she's back on board with us, she will be taking over the duties of your budget analyst going forward. But one thing I want to do before we dive into the document that I provided for you, I want to give you a brief overview of what we do at the budget office and how we handle the managing of your budget. Our main function is to facilitate the annual budget process. And what that is we're looking at your budget, and we're looking at any changes, any alterations, anything that happens with your budget. We go through that, and we always look 1 year in advance. And the reason we do that is we have to help you project what you're going to be doing 1 year in advance so that you know where you're going to be at the end of the year, whether you're in a surplus or you've busted your budget. So our job is to work with you. And fortunately for BEARHFTI, you have a leadership team who are very good stewards with your budget, your funds, and are very fiscally responsible. And it's a pleasure to work with them. One of the things that we do at DCA, all the programs that we manage, they participate in what's called incremental budgeting. And what that means is the budget starts from last year's budget. We don't start from scratch. We don't start from zero. We start where we left off from last year. And that's been approved by the governor. And then what we do is we go through, in a nutshell, it's where we were and where we're going to go. And we do that by incremental budgeting through a couple tools we have, like budget change proposals, budget letters, and executive orders. And it's a formal process we go through, and that's where we are now. This typically happens in the fall, and we're going through that right now. We're getting the budget presented, prepared. Several of the things that we go through, to give examples of what happens, we go through employee compensation, we go through retirement rate contributions, anything that's going to be a change to your budget on an annual basis that we have to be very diligent about and stick to. So that's what we go through, and we're building it now. And several things we go through is, you'll see on the document in front of you, it's a very simplified version of a total budget, a whole total projection we gave you, that we give. And we whittled it down to several things just to look at. Now, the governor's budget is released on January 10th, and at that point, we will get more formal numbers to you, and we'll be sitting in front of you and giving you the updated numbers. So right now, we're just working on the projections. On the document in front of you, you see we whittled it down to two main categories. It's going to be your revenues and your expenditures, just like any business. We want to know what's coming in, and we want to know what's going out. And the strength of those also gives us the strength of of the fund condition, which we'll talk about a little bit. But one thing I do want to address, and the board is very aware of this, and all the programs within DCA are very aware of this, is our new reporting and accounting software system called Fmcsa. It's caused us a bunch of headaches. It's been a tough road. We have not been able to extract the exact information we need at the exact time we need it. We're working through it. And as everybody knows, anything new, it's going to be rough. So what we did, instead of throwing our arms up in the air and say, hey, we have nothing to report for you, we decided it was time to look at a 3-year average, look at the historical data, and when you're doing any type of projection, whether it's analytical, operational, or fiscal, you have to give a projection based on your high certainty of what has come from historical data. So that's why we went to a 3-year average, applied what we could do. We went in and extracted out year-to-date numbers and gave a pretty good projection where we think we're going to go with everything. So if we can look into the numbers, we have two of the programs, and we have the third one that's come on board, the household movers. So the first program we're looking at is the electronic compliance repair. If you look at your budget, you're budgeted for $2.7 million. You've spent about 23% of it already year to date. And roughly your reverted savings, we're looking about $300,000, $310,000. Pretty good savings and good spending of the money. Hefty's the same way. We're looking about a quarter percent of your budget is spent year to date, and we're looking about $100,000 reverted savings on that. As we jump down into household movers, this is where extracting data out of Fmcsa, we're kind of, as we've discussed in meetings before, we're kind of in a nebulous area where we're trying to figure it all out. But if you look at how things have been handled with Bear and Hefty, we don't have an issue. There's no red flags. There's been past performance. We say this is looking pretty good. So we take a point in time and draw money out of the system. We have to manually go in and pull it out. So you look at it, it does say 8%, but the reason it's 8% is because that's the limitations we have right now with Fmcsa. And there's nothing to tell us there's going to be anything different compared to the other two programs. So if you look down at the revenues, we have a point in time of revenues actually collected year to date, and things look pretty good. You're looking good on the money that you've brought in. You're looking at about $300,000 that we have reported in. Now there are funds out there and figures out there that we haven't extracted yet, but we will have those. And you're looking still, your fund reserve is pretty strong. You're looking at about 14 months of funds and reserves. I know that Nicholas and Rita have told us that there's things in the works to do things with this fund to bring it down just a little bit, which is great. And then at Hefty, we're looking about revenues coming in, $970,000 coming in. We're about $3 million in reserves or 7 months, a good solid fund. Now you use that same philosophy, what we know they're going to do with household movers. Household movers year to date is less than what you can see here because that's what we can extract. We're going through the whole processes there. As it looks about $760,000 in reserve or about 3-4 months in reserve. We know that's not correct, but we'll have those numbers for you. And, as anything else we look at, this whole board has the confidence of what is going on at BEARHFTI. We know these numbers are going to be solid. We know that household movers is going to come up. And as reported earlier, we have a lot more licenses, a lot more permits that are going to be changing these numbers. So those things are growing. But with all that said, there are no red flags. We're very happy. We're solid with what's going on, and we're going to be moving forward with greater numbers for you all. Any questions?
This is Rita Wong. I'm not so much a question, but I wanted to offer a compliment to you because I understand how much work you're putting into collecting the data for us manually since your fiscal system is having issues. And so I don't want that to be overlooked, that we appreciate your hard work on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a quick question. What happens with the fund reserves?
Just to clarify, what do you mean by that?
Well, here you got a fund reserve of, in Bear of, 3.3 million, 3.4. Does that disappear? Does it come back? Does it go into the general fund? Does it get spent?
Sure. Just to clarify, it's just like your bank account, like the Bureau's bank account. So your fund reserves is what supports your operations. So ultimately, kind of what Paul alluded to, what you bring in and what you spend, ultimately the difference between that, the cash flow difference, goes back to that fund reserve. That fund reserve is there for you, for the Bureau, for the future, for the foreseeable future, to support your operations. It doesn't go back to the general fund. It doesn't disappear. It's ultimately like the Bureau's bank account to support your expenditures. Yep.
I'm just curious, is there a guideline for how many months surplus you should have, or,
Yeah, that's a great question. So, by law, you can't have any more than 24 months in reserve. That's usually our red flag. When you approach that threshold, we start working with Nicholas and Rita to start exploring options to see how we could tailor that down. Ultimately, there's no floor, but what we keep as a pulse, if you will, in the budget office is 3 months in reserves, is that's usually kind of the area where once we approach that level, we start working with Nicholas and Rita in the Bureau to start exploring options to see how we could either sustain ourselves through that or increase or start looking to increase our months in reserve.
This is Antoinette Stein. I wanted to also say that it's, I really appreciate the fiscal transition, and it's really important, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Yeah. We'll see you guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Okay, next is the personnel update from Renetta, who is our new HR liaison. She's been on with the Bureau for, I don't know, about 4 months?
4 months today.
Okay, all right.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Is my voice okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Renetta Buckner, Human Resources Liaison for the Department of Consumer Affairs. I'm here to report on recruitment activities since the last Council Advisory meeting of August 2nd, 2018. The Bureau consists of 3 programs: Electronic and Appliance Repair, or EAR, which has 19 positions; BEARHFTI, or Home Furnishings Thermal Insulation, which has 28.9 total positions; and Division of Household Movers, or DHM, which has a total of 11 positions. Since August 1st, 2018, we finished recruitment for 2 Staff Services Managers Specialists for the Policy Unit, 1 Staff Services Analyst for the Compliance Unit, and 1 Special Investigator for Investigations Unit. The Bureau is currently interviewing for 2 special investigators for the Household Movers Program and 1 special investigator for the Electronic and Appliance Repair Program. Due to a retirement, we anticipate a vacancy for 1 Flammability Test Research Engineer in the spring of 2019. We're working with the DCA headquarters to release an examination in order to establish a list for this classification, and this will start the hiring process. Lastly, we are in the process of finalizing a contract with the Senior Community Service Employment Program, or CSEP. This is a community service and work-based job training program for older Americans. Through this program, the Bureau will receive the services of one part-time volunteer who will support the admin and reception area. The volunteer's pay will be funded through the CSEP program. Are there any questions? All right. Thank you.
Actually, this
Oh,
is
yes,
Judy
ma'am.
Levin.
Hi.
The hired test engineer is a replacement for Saeed?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
He
thank you.
retired. You're welcome. Anything else? Thank you.
Good job, Renetta. Thank you very much. Okay, now outreach and consumer education. So the Bureau, I'll speak to this. The Bureau has been working with the DCA Communications Division to, earlier in the year with the transition or the taking on the Household Movers program, we were able to do a social media campaign that sort of got that information out to a lot of the different newspapers, also Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So that was, that helped us actually in getting a lot more not users, but followers on social media. So our name did get out there then. And in conjunction with the name change of the Bureau, which will be effective January 1st of 2019, we'll be doing another sort of an outreach, social media and regular print media and news media campaign to get our name out there. Also, it's an opportunity to let consumers know, about all the different things that we do at the Bureau, especially with the Home Movers program coming on, and just what to look out for when you're moving and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we will. We are currently working on that campaign, and it will be rolling out roughly in January, sometime in January, in conjunction with the name change, which you'll see on our website will be changing as well, labels, the graphics, and all those things. So a lot of changes coming for the Bureau. Any questions or comments?
The acronym? B-Hugs, or what are we?
Yeah, B-Hugs. Someone said that yesterday in or 2 days ago in a meeting, and I like B-Hugs. I like B-Hugs.
Does everybody know what the new name's going to be here?
Oh, yeah, so it wasn't official then, but, so we will now be known as the Bureau of Household Goods and Services, BHGS. So it's exciting. Okay. Moving on. Oh.
Now that's such a big improvement, because when I've been telling people about the Bureau in the past and saying the full name of the Bureau, that they've actually fallen asleep before I got to the end. So, much improved.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to our legislative update from Fauna Lamar, and she's from the policy, ledge unit, I guess, at DCA.
Legislative Affairs.
Legislative Affairs, sorry. But we were able to, well, during the recruitment process, recruited her for one of the SSM1 specialist positions in our policy unit. So she'll be starting with the Bureau tomorrow. So we're very excited, and our the other position will be filled by Diana Godinez, who will be up here shortly. So we're excited, especially with, all the regulatory updates that we need. They will be, a great team to sort of lead that charge,
Well, thank
if you will.
So,
Yes.
so good morning, everybody. This is Yafana Lamar I am your DCA legislative analyst until 5 o'clock. And I'm going to go over the legislation from this past year. All bills have been signed or vetoed, so now we know what bills will impact the Bureau and how they will impact. So the first one in your packet is AB 2110 by Assemblymember Eggman. This bill was considered dead in May, but I included it because I was contacted in September by Assemblymember Eggman's office. They are considering reintroducing it next year. They're not sure in what form. I was hoping to have an update for you today. I talked to their legislative director yesterday, and they haven't made a final decision. But they said as soon as that decision is made, they will contact me. So they'll be contacting me at the Bureau. So I'm sorry I don't have anything meaningful to update you on that. Any questions? Okay. The next bill is AB 2138. So this bill was very controversial. It was opposed by almost every program within the department. It's very technical, so forgive me for reading to you, but I want to make sure I get the details correct. This bill prohibits denial of a license based on a conviction, underlying acts of a conviction, including dishonesty, fraud, or deceit, or if the applicant has a certificate of rehabilitation. That's a change from current law, which allows denial of a license based on an act of fraud, dishonesty. This bill now requires the conviction. It imposes a 7-year limitation on convictions eligible for licensure denial, which is also a change. There was no statute of limitations previously. This bill prohibits programs from requiring applicants to disclose criminal history on the application form. They were calling it ban the box on all applications. Hi. On all applications, there was a box that the applicant would check whether or not they have criminal convictions, and they would have to check that. That is now banned for most DCA entities. That does not apply to the Bureau. I'll talk about that in a second. It allows denial if the applicant has been subject to formal discipline by any licensing entity inside or outside California for professional conduct issues within the previous 7 years. So if they were licensed in another state and they were subject to disciplinary action there, they can't just come here and get a license. They would be subject to denial. It also requires programs to track data, report it to the legislature, and publish that data on the department website. BEARHFTI specific impact will require regulations, so Diana and I will be working on that. There's a timeline that the department put together. They want draft regs by February. Some programs do not require fingerprinting, such as BEARHFTI's ear and HFTI programs. Because of that, BEARHFTI and its practice acts were excluded from the ban the buck. So BEARHFTI can still ask about previous criminal convictions on its application forms. That includes household movers, even though household movers are fingerprinted. And that's it. This bill has a 2-year implementation date. It's not effective until 2020, but there are a lot of changes that are going to need to be made, such as to the substantial relationship criteria and the regs, and a ton of other internal changes within the department. We don't know how this is going to affect a lot of programs for a couple years, and we won't know the total impacts. We expect amendments, but we're not sure what those are going to look like, and we won't know until next year. Any questions or concerns I could take back to the department? Sure.
Hi, Antoinette Stein. So is there going to be like an engagement program for that regulation workout?
It will go through the usual public notice and public input, the usual regulatory process.
And on the, with respect to veterans, is there anything special that will be included?
No, this bill didn't address veterans at all. The bill was intended to reduce barriers to licensure, to allow those who have previous convictions to get a job. So, any other questions, concerns? Okay, the next bill is AB 2198 by Obernolte. This bill requires fiscal, and the budget folks talked about fiscal. It requires fiscal to report special fund expenditures. Previously, the law it specified general fund expenditures. DCA is 100% special fund, or not funded by the taxpayers or funded by licensees. So they made that amendment to capture DCA and other programs like DCA. Fiscal has a goal of reporting expenditure information by July of 2019. That's according to their website, but they don't have a mandate. As far as the website, they have a pilot program right now. It includes really general information, and the participants in the pilot are departments. So I don't know if the Bureau-specific expenditures are going to be reported or if it's going to be department level. There was nothing to indicate what that would be, and the budget folks left, so, so I can't ask them. But that should be up July. Any questions?
Yeah, the questions are just to the depth of the information provided, which
Right.
we don't have, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
that's a critical element.
I can, if I find anything out before the next meeting, I can bring that just to provide an update. Okay, the next bill is AB 2958 by Assemblymember Quirk. I spoke about this bill in the March meeting. It changes, or at the time, it made mandatory requirements of meetings for advisory committees or boards. It was very limiting in how you could conduct your meetings and notice your meetings. The bill was amended to provide an alternative. So in order to use that alternative, you have to meet certain requirements like listing members participating remotely in the minutes. You have to give 24-hour public notice prior to the meeting of any members participating remotely. So that would be online, 24-hour notice. That also means if somebody's plans change, they can't get here because they're coming up by 5, they cannot participate because they wouldn't have been able to give 24 hours notice. You would need to designate a primary physical location accessible to the public, and there would need to be a quorum of members at that location. If remote access fails during the meeting must adjourn. This is different from Bagley-Keene in that Bagley-Keene does not require a public or a primary location to be designated. Bagley-Keene only requires one person present at each location versus a quorum. Each teleconference location requires public access under Bagley-Keene, whereas this option does not. So you could call in from home. Each teleconference location must be publicly noticed in Bagley-Keene. This does not require that. So if you can call in from anywhere because the location doesn't have to be noticed. And Bagley-Keene requires posting of the agenda, whereas this option does not. So there are some differences that may make this option, something you want to do for certain meetings, but you're not required to do it like the bill was when originally introduced. Any questions? Okay. Now to the,
Yeah, Fauna?
Sure.
So what is the implication then for meetings like this for us, for people who are calling in? If we didn't, without giving like 24 hours notice?
The way the bill is written, you would not be able to participate. I have a request into legal to see exactly how this would affect the Bureau, to see if that's how the bill reads, but I want to get their opinion on it. I was hoping to have that today, but I haven't received it yet. So we'll definitely update you when we get that. If you decide to hold a meeting according to that option in March.
Yeah, okay, so if you could, have a nice written summary sent out to us, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, now we're getting to the bills that impact the Bureau directly. AB 2998, the bill sponsored by the Natural Resource Defense Council and Center for Environmental Health prohibits the use of flame retardant chemicals above 1,000 parts per million. It allows the Bureau to publish a list of products that cannot be sold in California and take enforcement action. This would be based on failed test results from SB 1019 testing that is extended to juvenile products, the foam in mattresses, and reupholstered furniture. This bill was amended a couple times since you last met, so I just wanted to go over those amendments so you know how the bill will now impact the Bureau. It was amended to refine the definition of FR specifically to add synergists. So those are included in the list of chemicals that will be tested for. It exempts mattress components other than foam. It requires the International Sleep Products Association to conduct a survey of mattress producers that are registered and not registered. So any mattress producer to survey for the content of their mattresses. So this will be for materials that meet flammability standards other than FRs, flammability or FR content, and methods for incorporating FRs into each unique combination of components. This reporting will begin January 31st, 2020, and every 3 years thereafter. The International Sleep Products Association is required to report to the Bureau any manufacturer that does not respond, and the Bureau is required to publish the non-responders, a list. Otherwise, it's as it was the last time we spoke. This bill passed, it's enacted, it's effective January 1st. Any questions? Comments?
I'm just curious about the nanoscale chemical involved. So how is that going to affect the laboratory? Because I'm not sure what the definition is, and can you do any testing for that?
Well, the folks doing our testing is DTSC, so I'm not sure if they'll have new methodology by that time. That is at January 1, 2020, right?
Mm-hmm. This is Judy. I would imagine that will be more of a paper report, certification that none of those have been added to the product at this time, I would imagine.
You look like you're going to say something, Nicholas.
No.
I'll ask a question. ISPA is a voluntary organization.
Mm-hmm.
What if mattress manufacturer does not belong to that organization? How will they get data from them?
That's something they're going to have to work out. The responsibility to conduct the survey of all manufacturers lies with them, and they actually negotiated this amendment with the legislature.
I can't remember if there was something in the bill also about getting the names of all the California BEARHFTI licensees that would sell mattresses and including them in that. But I don't remember for sure if that got edited out.
The language says including but not limited to Bureau licensees. So it includes everybody.
Right, so that might get people who are not part of the Sleep Products Association.
Right.
And also just to reflect, this bill was also co-sponsored by California Professional Firefighters.
Okay. The last bill is the Sunset Bill. Congratulations on making it through Sunset testimony, Nicholas, as a new chief. You won't have to do this again until 2022. Amendments since the last time you met are the name change and technical amendments to incorporate that name change. So I highlighted all the amendments in the version of the bill that's in the packet. So if you see some that don't apply to you, like there's some behavioral science amendments, those are technical amendments that were put in to avoid chaptering out, because in order to implement the name change, the general business and professions code had to be amended. So if you see something that doesn't apply to you, that's why. Any questions on the Sunset Bill? Well, congratulations again on the name change.
Thank you. I have a question. It's probably not legislative, but it's related to the implementation of this bill. For example, some of this language, it needs to be translated into the Max 4 tariff. Is there a plan to amend the tariff? For example, this important information booklet, important information when you move, is direct language from the tariff. So that body needs to mirror what's stated in the Business and Professions Code. Has that been addressed? Or?
So the Max 4 tariff will be updated, yeah, to accommodate any changes that were made in B&P.
So typically for any piece of legislation, each program would have to come up with the implementation plan, at least for the program-specific bills. For DCA-wide bills, DCA provides an implementation memo with guidance on how to implement it. So that's something that's done in the normal course of business for every bill that impacts the Bureau. Okay, and the last one, it's a federal bill, Senate Bill 3551, the Safer Occupancy Furniture Flammability Act, otherwise known as SOFA. Awesome name. It would make TB 117-2013 the federal standard. That bill was just introduced, so there's nothing really to report other than they want to make California standard the national standard. So I'll start watching that as of tomorrow. We don't keep, at the department, we don't really keep an eye on federal bills. At the program, I will be. So if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer them tomorrow. Anything else? Okay, for members who have contacted me in the past, since I'm staying within DCA, my email will not change. So you can still contact me there. My phone number will change, so that'll be in my email signature beginning tomorrow. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, then Diana Godinez, she'll give us our regulatory update.
Hello, Diana Benitez. I'm working the policy unit. I'm here to present on the Bureau's regulatory activities. As of September 17th, we concluded the public comment period for our amendments to flammability standards to Technical Bulletin 133. We are currently working on finalizing the final statement of reasons, and we'll have the regulatory package ready soon for submittal to the Office of Administrative Law for their review. With the signing of Senate Bill 1483, our sunset bill, and with the new name change, we'll be preparing regulatory documents to update our regulations with our new name. So since this is Section 100 regulation package, it should go fairly quickly since it's a change without regulatory effect. Future regulatory activities will include amendments to the Bureau's labeling requirements, thermal insulation standards, and adopting regulations for the Division of Household Movers. We will hold public workshops in the beginning of the year to garner input from stakeholders. The public workshops to discuss the changing of our labeling requirements will be held for February 5th, and the public workshop for adopting regulations regarding household movers will be held on February 7th. So we will provide more information regarding the location and the time of our workshops on our website and email those on our interested parties list.
Are those meetings also online for those that can't attend?
We will do a teleconference, but
Yeah, there will be a teleconference option, but we won't have it in, a situation like this or with this technology. Yeah, recorded.
Okay.
No video recording. Yeah.
any other questions?
Okay.
That's it?
Thank you. You have another one? Another question?
Just maybe on the labeling, since there were, many penalties, et cetera, do you expect good attendance at these workshops then? To get it right so it's not, later fix it? Or are you reaching out before? Is there
Yes, this
efforts?
would be our way of reaching out and making sure that we do have everyone's input before we start with drafting the language.
This might be a question for Nicholas, is now that the AB 2998 is passed, will we be able to get rid of the SB 1019 comments on our law label?
That is to be determined in the labeling meeting that public meeting that Diana just mentioned, the February 5th. So we'll discuss all of the options, what we're thinking with regard to that, and any other, labeling changes that that anyone wants to discuss, really.
Hi, this is Judy. I just wanted to add in that when the bill was being discussed, this question came up about whether there's still a need for SB 1019. And we definitely feel there is a need. It will help the Bureau identify products that do not contain flame retardants, which is what the bill requires. Without a label, how will they know which to test? And also for consumers, it will provide the assurance that they need that this product is free of flame retardant chemicals. So we talked about whether we still needed it, and the group decided we still thought there was value for the Bureau as well as consumers.
So it'll be valuable for you to attend the meeting, it sounds like.
I guess so.
Okay. Okay, any other comments on regulations or the meetings that we'll have in February? Did you guys get the household movers regs?
7th.
Yeah, the 7th. So, and this will we'll send out information through our listservs and on both of those meetings, and
Thank you.
Can you say what time that meeting is?
we don't have a time yet. I mean, I would imagine it'll be around the 10 a.m. sort of time frame. We'll send that out though soon. Okay. On to item number 4, home furnishings and thermal insulation agenda item. And this is the results of the assessment from the laboratory's accreditation agency from A2LA. Given by Carrie, lab manager.
Hi, good morning again. I did just want to make one little comment on the SB 1019 labeling. That is in our law, not in our regs, so it's a little more difficult to take items out of our law, just as a note. All righty. I want to talk a little bit about the laboratory accreditation. Initially, I had just a small little blurb, but I decided it is a very big deal, actually, for our laboratory, so I did put together a little bit more information. Our BEARHFTI laboratory is accredited with the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, 17025, 2017, for the upholstered furniture and bedding testing program, and currently the ISO 17025-2005 for the thermal insulation testing program. The 17025 is the international reference for testing and calibration labs wanting to demonstrate capacity for reliable test results. American Association for Laboratory Accreditation, A2LA, and National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program, NAVLab, are third-party bodies that provide accreditation services to various international standards. We have been accredited for testing in the insulation program since the early 80s, and for the upholstered furniture and bedding program since November 2016. The reason for accreditation is to ensure our laboratory testing is beyond reproach, confirms the reliability and competency of our laboratory test results. The accrediting body must be a signatory to the International Laboratory Accreditation Council, ILAC, a mutual recognition arrangement, MRA. The ILAC approves accrediting bodies such as A2LA and NAVLab. The accreditation evaluation process is quite extensive. Assessors review the laboratory procedures, sampling plans, purchasing procedures, document controls, calibration records, training records, environmental conditions, equipment maintenance logs, quality assurance manuals, quality management system, measurement uncertainties, validity of results, final reports, use of logos, and now newly added requirements for the ISO 17025-2017. The A2LA accreditation process began with an initial assessment in 2016, followed by a surveillance assessment in 2017, and now we recently had a routine assessment in October of 2018. The assessor complimented our laboratory for taking on the new standard, the 17025-2017, as opposed to sticking with the 2005 version, and achieving compliance, and he said our quality of record keeping was exquisite, meaning the flow of the product from receiving to testing to the final report. We are now accredited for the most recent international standard, the 2017 version, which is valid through October 31st, 2020. A2LA will return in 2020 and every other year thereafter. If we still have a valid contract with A2LA, but that's another meeting, as we know, with contracts and bidding and how the state operates. As a note, we do have NAVLab coming in January to assess our insulation testing program. Any questions on that process?
Antoinette Stein. I'm curious, it's congratulations, first of all, and excellent, the passing and the comments from the accreditation bodies. My question is, health and safety, OSHA issues for your own workers. Are you actually doing any sample cutting or sample, motion with it? And do you put in practices to protect your own workers?
Right. We do have personal protective equipment for every step of the way. Yes, the question is probably on our foam bandsaw, the cutting of the polyurethane foam. We do have respirators, and we have gloves for that function. And we have many other functions, of course, a full-scale burn room. We have other types of respirators, but we do consider employee safety a high priority.
And it sounded like many of the samples that you tested were showing no chemicals of concern. But if you do have it, do you have a cleanup procedure going on, like to, do high HEPA vacuuming, et cetera? How do you remove the distribution of particulate that could
Maybe the
affect your
dust.
workers? Yep.
Yeah, right. So we do have a vacuum system built in to our foam saw cutting room. It's true that most of our disposal of our foams, they are in plastic bags, and we do dispose of those items in a 40-yard dumpster that we do contract out with. But it does end up, yes, in the landfill, true.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Okay, electronic appliance repair agenda item by Jonathan. This is regarding sting operations.
Yes. Hello again. So these are in the very early stages of planning, but planned future increases in enforcement operations for electronic and appliance repair. And so with home movers coming on and sort of the increased cooperation and contacts with law enforcement and district attorney's offices, there is the opportunity for sting operations. And so currently, electronic appliance repair, the way the operations there are random inspections, directed inspections, and also sweeps, but sting operations would look to target more unlicensed activity and unlicensed activity that is occurring outside of brick and mortar facilities. And so there's been an increase in mobile operations that are harder to track down and issue citations or infractions. And so there is an opportunity for that to occur, and in the future we will be aggressively pursuing enforcement stings.
So this sort of speaks to that the budget, the reversion that we have in on the BEAR side, in the BEAR fund, and, increasing operations or getting back into sting operations. I guess the Bureau did sting operations back in the 90s, maybe? Yeah. So, so we'll get back into sting operations, and it sort of works well, like Jonathan was saying, since we'll be looking at doing sting operations for the household movers program.
Correct.
Anyway, so we figured we'd just expand it to electronics as well. So.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
This is Antoinette again. Is there any international, interaction with it, the products, being non-U.S. products? Anything coming from other countries that are, under sting issues?
No, I mean currently for the electronic appliance repair, it's tied to the repair of the items, and the repair would occur within the jurisdictional bounds of the state, and so it's on the ground within our reach. Thank you. Any other questions? And I guess I could do the home movers agenda.
Oh, for sure. Oh, sure.
Yes, while I'm up here, skipping to number 7, potential partnership with FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. There's been mutual interest with our federal counterpart. So the FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, is part of the Department of Transportation. They've reached out to us, we've reached out to them as well, and this is important in terms of resolving hold hostage situations that go beyond state bounds. And so all the hold hostage situations that we've been able to resolve have occurred within the state, but that's not necessarily the case with all moving. It's a lot of these moves go beyond state bounds. We've had several, I could say, in New Jersey, a lot on the East Coast, where we've been able to reach out to FMCSA to assist in obtaining for the consumer to reobtain possession of those items. And also a benefit is the information that the federal counterparts have, rather than us redoing an investigation, reinventing the wheel. We would like to be able to use that information that's already been gathered, the investigation that's already been done. And so the boots on the ground throughout the state, throughout the states, the other states, and the information will be a great benefit to us. Any questions?
I would just offer a word of caution in proceeding with FMCSA. I think that they can be very valuable for you and on the information side. On the physical partnership side, that has been a challenge in many states. They don't have resources for the most part on the ground. And as long as you have an agreement in place as far as any fines assessed, et cetera, how that revenue would be shared to be equitable to the partner that's providing the actual, services, then I would say proceed. That would be my only caution.
Okay. And we've reached out to other local state agencies as well. So New Jersey Department of Consumer Affairs, contact with them, but in that particular case. So they're not the only ones.
Good.
Thanks. Yes?
Antoinette Stein again. There's a new regulation that kicked in at the beginning of this year, 1383, SB 1383, and I wondered if there's going to be enforcement activation on that coming up regarding the throwing away of organics, such as paper boxes. It's illegal now to do that. You must recycle it. And so I just am curious if there's going to be any outreach and communication and interaction with Cal Recycle.
As far as
I'm sure on the service line that the services don't really extend the box container action, but sometimes it does, and so it just would be a friendly reminder to everyone because it's a statewide push that we all need to take care of because of the methane coming out of the landfills from the anaerobic digestion that happens with organics. It's a huge issue that we all need to take care of.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. And then for the other household movers agenda item number 6, we'll have Jacqueline Castro present on that.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Within the last 2 months, the Bureau has issued 20 household mover permits. The Bureau has also contracted out with the Office of Professional Examination Services and PSI Testing Center to administer and proctor the household movers exams for Southern California. This service provides the examinees with the choice of three different locations: Burbank, San Diego, and Riverside. In addition, the household movers exam for Northern California continues to be administered and proctored at the Bureau in-house. Doing this not only helps the Bureau provide the examinees with more possible exam dates, it's also cost-effective and efficient. As a result, the examinees are provided with their testing results approximately 2 weeks after their testing date. In addition to that, the new application packet has been reviewed by our legal department. We are working on revisions and should have the new application packet accessible online next year, along with our Bureau's name change. In conclusion, the Bureau continues to strengthen their rapport with the household movers applicants and with those who are licensed. Do you have any questions for me?
Same question as before. Is there also work to train on the training side for the testers to prepare for the tests?
So we will be having some workshops. We're hopefully trying to come up with some ideas on how to host workshops next year for how to fill out the application. We currently do not have a study guide. We do often get calls regarding a study guide. We don't have one. I think it's definitely something we will be considering for future. There seems to be a great need for it. Right now, we basically give them the Max 4 tariff, which is online, and the distance table as well. We've provided more explanation to our examinees. I know often they call and they're kind of a little nervous about the exam, so we've been able to bring that anxiety down a bit and explain to them more or less that the exam has been improved since it was in CPUC's hands, and we also have seen a higher rate of passing on the exam itself. Anything else? Yes.
It's been a lot of years since I've taken that exam. Is it still an open tariff exam?
Yes, it is. We've provided references on the exam itself to pages and item numbers in the actual tariff. Because the tariff is 100-plus pages deep, I know a lot of examinees think they need to memorize the book from front to back. That's obviously not the case, but we do encourage them to be familiar with the tariff because that's something they have to follow. And it seems to be going positive, in a positive path. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, any other general public comments, whether on, well, yeah, I guess generally speaking on anything or on anything, on something specific that was on the agenda? Now would be the time.
I just want to speak to, lots of times when we're looking at regulation, we're looking at the negative aspects of businesses and what they're doing. And I will tell you that related to this particular area in the campfire, the California Moving and Storage Association, working in conjunction with the American Logistics Aid Network, has set up 6 different companies to provide services to the impacted areas in the upcoming days. So you've seen probably people make just deliveries, and those are difficult because everyone wants to help and they bring things up and set it off, and there's no good distribution network. And Red Cross and others have said, please stop doing that. But what we're doing is working with the aid groups to distribute goods from Chico to Oroville, et cetera. So I just wanted to toot that horn that, that if you have a regulated environment and people that can function and make a living in the business, then they're also there to help the community.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for that. And I've heard, as I'm sure a lot of you have, about in times like these, a lot of folks coming together. It's good to see the regulated community that are, following the rules and are good stewards of the industry are, are doing their part. It's good. It's good to see. So thank you. Okie dokie. I think we are all. Oh.
One
Thanks for that.
other point is, on the labeling, is there any on the labeling right now, today, any URL or or a code, those visual codes that you can use on your phone, et cetera? Anything yet added to the, no. And the reason I ask is, since there's space limitations, there's always the opportunity, if that had that, to allow people to go get more information, especially on the recycling at end of life, what one is supposed to do with the product. I think that would be useful in the future.
Thank you for that comment. Okay. If that is all, we will conclude with this this council meeting, and we'll see you all on, I believe it was the 14th of March. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.